All right, so now that we've done, now that we've finished gluing it up, now we're gonna sand it. And you can see on my test board here, there is some marks left from the clamps where the glue got stuck underneath them and I was unable to get that. That's okay, we're gonna sand all that off. And here I'm looking to see, you know, I can see that it's not quite smooth, so all that's gotta be sanded down. You know, you can feel that it's not smooth, same with the ends. And that's what we're gonna take care of right now. So you wanna get out your sanding mat and you wanna place it over some of your dried glue from the glue up. The reason for that is the cutting board won't move. Obviously, you want a stable top, but it'll also protect from the glue underneath, which is pretty hard by now and could actually scratch the board. So we'll start here. And then with your kit, you have your 4 sandpapers. The higher the number, the finer the sanding is. So we're gonna start with the low number. We have 50, 80, 120, and 220. And as you do this, you wanna sand the entire board with 1 piece of sandpaper before you move on to the next. So you take your sanding block like so. Just put that in there, and then come around and do it the same on the other. This is easy to do if you pin it up against your body or the table. Squeeze that one in there, then you're ready to go. And this should remove a lot of material fast. So you want, and then when you're sanding, you want to make sure you go with the lines of the grain. The reason for that is when you're sanding, you're essentially scratching the wood. So you want to scratch with it. And so as you get finer, you don't have scratches going against your grain that'll be harder to get out as you move up to the finer sandpapers. So just like that, we're gonna sand it, and because these darker woods are raised higher, you're gonna see the dark dust come off first as it takes that off. Now this sanding takes a little bit of elbow grease and it takes a little time, but every good woodworker starts sanding all their projects by hand before they move on to power tools. If you have power tools, be my guest, but this is the best way to learn. You can see it makes a little dust, so you want to make sure you got a nice protected area when you do this. And it started to remove the glue from the high points. But here I have to continue sanding to get all that. You want to sand until this thing is relatively flat and all your little blemishes are off of it. It's imperative that you get all the glue because the glue will repel the oil and your board will look weird when you're oiling it. The more elbow grease you put into it, faster it's gonna go. It takes patience. You wanna do this right. You can see the glue is pretty much almost gone there. And I'm pretty flat except for this area here, but that's fine. So we'll just keep sanding it hard and get it over with, right? If you have an area like this blemish here that is already flat, you just want to get rid of that. Don't worry about doing this. Just angle your sanding block like so and focus on that area. The same could be said with the glue. I would do that if this area was flat, but it's not quite flat enough yet. So now this is pretty flat, so I can go ahead and focus on these glue areas with the end here. You can still see the glue, it's not quite ready. But I'm just gonna take the time and finish it up. So you can see the glue is almost completely gone. There's a little bit there and there. And then I have a little bit here on the end. And maybe some right here. But it's pretty flat. As soon as I get rid of those marks, this thing will be ready to, this side will be done with this sandpaper. Now at this point, if you wanted to work on a little area, what you can do here is take your sandpaper out. Just give it a nice little fold and work on that area like that. Want to be careful not to focus on one area because then you'll get a nice little trough. You want to keep it all nice and flat. So I move back and forth. Getting a little sweat here. This is quite the workout. So I'm pretty comfortable with this. Most of the glue is gone. In fact, I can't see any. And it's pretty flat. So that's only one face though, so let's go ahead and finish up the rest. Now you want to do the same thing. You can see I got some blemishes here, some burn marks from my saw on the long ends. This one's pretty good, but I still want to sand the whole thing so it's all sanded with the same grit. Then on the ends, you don't have to worry about going with the grain because the grain is coming towards you. But this one you want to get flat too. Now this is why when you glue it up, it's imperative to have these lined up as much as possible so you can do less sanding. So you can see that's not quite lined up. So. Now there's just a few high points in the middle, but the ends are all lined up now. That's this strong grit does quick work of that wood. Now when you're doing this with your lowest grit, you want to make sure and do as good a job as possible because the higher grits won't remove as much wood. And if you want to go back, you'll have to restart the process on this particular side of the board. It's just that little middle piece in there. If you run your fingernail, you can feel it. It's getting caught just a little bit in there. There we go. Now that's nice and flat. In contrast to this side, which still has a little bit of ridges, if you run your fingernail, you can, if you feel like it caught, then you know it's not flat. So once you do the ends and all these sides, then for each grit, you want to make sure and round over the edges too. Just quick pass like that on the edges. Not so sharp anymore. Same with these edges here. And the long edge as well. Now, you can also do the corner. Gives it that homemade look to it. And then when you're done and you do this on every grit, you have a nice smooth, non-sharp corner that's not going to hurt anybody. So that's sanding. You pretty much replicate the process on every side. And to save you time, I'm going to go ahead and finish sanding this off camera, and then we'll look at it, what it looks like being oiled.